Hi there guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to another deck profile on the channel. So today we're going to be running a budget dinosaur deck profile. So last week we ran a full powered dinosaur deck and I realised that it's not far away from being completely budget. But there are a couple of cards in there which are a little bit more expensive. Now a lot of dinosaurs got reprinted in Wild Survivors late last year and that was really useful for being able to pick up like an animadorned Archosaur or something like that for very cheap. But we did get the Ground Xeno package come out, which hasn't had a reprint yet. I'm hoping that it come in the Megatons at the end of the year. But yeah, we're kind of running Ground Xeno, which is a £20 card out of 2 of. So I figured that's not very budget. So let's see what we can do. Taking those out and going back to a little bit of an old school dino build actually, because I've put back in the scrap engine, which I really enjoy using the scrap cards in dinos, but it does have a little choke point in there which makes it worse than running the sort of full powered version with Ground Xeno, just because scrap Wyvern can be interacted with under the effects of Miscellaneousaurus, which sucks when that happens. When the opponent realizes that happens, it really sucks. But yeah, as a budget option, I think you'll be able to get this deck for around about £70 to £80. That includes the full main deck, hand traps, and the extra deck as well. Now, there's one expensive card, well, I suppose two expensive cards in the extra deck. That's Relinquished Anima, which is unfortunately mandatory in the deck because Link Haribo got banned. And Evolves on Lars as well, which is still sitting at around about £6. It's not breaking the bank, but when people are running on a budget, £6 can be quite a lot. So you can always substitute that in for something else, and I'll give you an idea as to what you can substitute in for when we get there. But yeah, if you are excited for this deck profile, then please do subscribe down below. We are trying to get to 250 subscribers by the end of the year. It'd be really helpful if you could do that for us. Yeah, I love dinos, so I really wanted to bring this to you, and we're going to be bringing keycard and combo guides for dinos in the next couple of weeks, as well as running down how I got on at locals last week, which I'm going to be doing next video. With that, let's get on to the profile. So with this profile, I'm going to be running through the cards a little bit faster. I'm not going to be actually reading all of the cards out and everything like that, so that if you want to see what all of the cards do, then just go and watch the last week's video. So in this particular one, we are going to be running 2 copies of our boss monster, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Fantastic card for breaking down boards, able to turn things face down on the opponent's field, and you also get a destruction of one of your monsters as well, which is something that we're wanting. It's a really useful boss monster. It can attack all monsters that your opponent controls. Very, very useful. Next, we've got our main searcher for the deck. We've got 3 copies of Soul-Eating Oviraptor. So on summon, this guy searches, and normally going to be searching for a baby Ceratosaurus or a Miscellaneousaurus. And then you've also got the extra ability to summon from the graveyard by destroying a monster as well with Soul-Eating Oviraptor. So fantastic card to have in the deck. Definitely a 3-off. Next up, you have got 1 copy of Miscellaneousaurus. Here's hoping that it comes off the ban list. Miscellaneousaurus is probably the best card in the deck, and there's a reason that it is only at 1. Basically, it stops you from it protects your dinosaurs from any effects that your opponent might activate. And it's really useful for just protecting your board and stopping you from getting hand trapped. It also protects you from Nibiru, which is really useful as well because we summon a lot in this deck. Next up, we've got our babies. We've got 3 copies of Baby Ceratosaurus. When he's popped, you get to special summon a level 4 or lower dinosaur. 2 copies of Petite Pteranodon. When he's popped, you get to special summon a level 4 or higher dinosaur, but it can't attack this turn. And then 2 copies of Animadorned Archosaur. Animadorned Archosaur coming out in Wild Survivors, getting reprinted in Wild Survivors, is really useful for us wanting to play on a budget. It is now much cheaper than it used to be. Whereas it used to be sort of a sort of £5-6 card. Now you'll be able to pick it up for 99p, I reckon at most. We've got 1 copy of Kaitop Terror. Kaitop Terror is not had a reprint or anything like that. when it came out in Maze of Millennia. But it is a really useful card. It's replaced Giant Rex. It's still, I believe, 99p. So it easily fits in on the budget option. If you don't have Kaitop and you don't want to be purchasing one, you can also use Giant Rex for exactly the same job, for sort of sending it to the graveyard and then banishing it to summon it back again. But this gives us the option of being able to play Polymerization in the deck as well. Next up, we've got one copy of Dino Wrestler Pankratops. Pankratops, it still only needs to be a one-off. And you could play Kashtira Unicorn if you wanted, Kashtira Fenrir even, if you wanted to for similar effects. But honestly, we can search Pankratops in the deck, so that's really useful. We can use it throughout of our combo as well, just finishing off the combo for an extra interruption. Next up, we've got the Xeno package. We've got one copy of Xeno Meteorus and one copy of Frostosaurus. Now, Xenometeorus is still, it's not 99p, it's not the cheapest of cards, it's only like £3-4. It's fairly cheap. If you wanted to take this out though, you could just replace it with a couple of copies of Dogoran, the Kaiju, just for breaking down boards. It's not absolutely necessary, but if you are going to replace Xenometeorus, replace Frostosaurus as well, and you would have to take out your big boss monster Fusion whilst you're at it, but it's not necessarily an issue. Next up, we're playing one copy of True King Lithosogym. We're still playing Dragonic Diagram in the deck. Dragonic Diagram, because we've got the ability to search out the field spell now, playing True King Lithosogym gets us extra destructions and the potential of being able to banish cards from the opponent's extra deck. Next up, we've got our Scrap package. So we've got two copies of Scrap Raptor and then one copy of Scrap Chimera. So these weren't in last week's build, so let's go through what Scrap Raptor does. So you can target one monster that you control, destroy it. Also, during your main phase this turn, you can normal summon one Scrap monster in addition to your normal summon or set. If this card is destroyed by the effect of a Scrap card and sent to the graveyard, you can add one Scrap Factory or one non-tuner Scrap monster from your deck to your hand. You'll only use each effect of Scrap Raptor once per turn. So you're always going to be searching out for Scrap Chimera, because Scrap Chimera has the effect of cannot be used as synchro material, except for the synchro summon of a Scrap monster. We're going to be using it for Xyz or Link plays, so that's fine. All other materials must be Scrap monsters. When this card is normal summoned, you can target one Scrap tuner in your graveyard to special summon that target. So you can use the Scrap Raptor to gain an extra normal summon, and then search for the Scrap Chimera, and then normal summon the Scrap Chimera in order to be able to summon back that Scrap Raptor. And you're actually able to get all three of these pieces of scrap out onto the field at one time, at the same time, later on in the combo. Finishing off the monsters, we have got 3 copies of Ash Blossom and 3 copies of Effect Veiler for our hand traps. Effect Veiler is nice and cheap, don't need to pay too much for that. Ash Blossom's obviously still an expensive card for wanting to run a 3-off, but I figured you need hand traps in today's day and age. If you've not got hand traps, then you need to be investing in hand traps because they can go in any deck pretty much. So having Ash Blossom is not going to be sort of breaking the bank because you should already have access to it. And if not, it's only beneficial to get yourself 3 copies of Ash Blossom. It only becomes expensive running Ash Blossom when you're wanting to get specific extra cards to go in each of your decks. Next up for the spells, we have got 3 copies of Fossil Dig to be able to search for a level 6 or lower dinosaur type monster. That is not once per turn either, which is really useful. We've got 2 copies of Double Evolution Pill to allow us to summon into our Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. You can also use Pill to summon into something like Pankratops if you needed to as well. Then our field spells, we have got 1 copy of Lost World. Lost World is the dinosaur field spell specifically. It gives you a little bit of protection. It gives you your opponents lose 500 attack and defense. It allows you to summon tokens to your opponent's side of the field. It's really, really useful in a lot of ways, Lost World, but you don't need to run more than one copy of it. Then we got one copy of Dragonic Diagram to search for our True King monster whilst getting a destruction in our hand. Really useful for just popping a baby and then being able to get access to True King Lithosogym and summon out another baby for the summon of True King Lithosogym as well. And then we've got one copy of Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Secret Village of the Spellcasters is really useful for if we're struggling to climb too high, we can go into the Dark Charmer Gloomy, and be able to bring out Secret Village of the Spellcasters using our fusion monster. And that locks the opponent out of spell cards. It's really useful for that. We've got a single copy of Called by the Grave and a single copy of Polymerization. And then finally, to finish off the main deck, we got 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Now, obviously, Imperm, again, is another rather pricey card, but it's something that you need exactly the same as Ash Blossom. All right, that is everything that we've got in the main deck. Let's take a look at the extra deck. There's only one major change that I've made in the extra deck, but there's also other things that you could change as well. So, first one, we have got Transcendosaurus Gigantozola. That's not too much of an expensive card. It came from Wild Survivors. It's not too expensive. It's a pretty cool card to be able to use with your copies of Polymerization and your Xenometeorus and Frostosaurus. We've got one copy of Hornsaurus. Hornsaurus to be able to search for field spells and play it directly to the field. And you can also get an extra normal summon of a dinosaur or dragon monster. We've got one synchro in the deck. We've still got Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying. Really useful in the deck for being able to just banish extra cards from your opponent's side of the field. We do banish a couple of things from our graveyard and stuff like that. So useful to have Cheng Ying around. Our Xyz package, we've got one Evolza Dolka for monster negates. We have got one Evolza Lagia to negate summons and activated spells and traps. And we've got one Evolza Lars. Now, Evolza Lars is a little bit more pricey, still sitting at around about £6. So you might want to be cutting Evolza Lars from the deck if you're really wanting to keep it budget. I've already cut like Access Code Talker out of here because of it's a similar price, around that £5 mark. So Evolza Lars is definitely something you could potentially cut. You could cut that for like a Scarlet Dragon Archfiend or something like that. I think that would be a good option for board breaking and to win you some game 3s, which would be really useful. Then we've got number 60, Dagares the Timeless, to be able to boost our Ultimate Conductor Tyranno up to 7,000 attack. Next up, we've got the most expensive card in the deck. We've got Relinquished Anima. It unfortunately is necessary to play Relinquished Anima. Fingers crossed we do get a re-release, a reprint of it at some point. But yeah, it is necessary to play Relinquished Anima in the deck to be able to get Animadorned Archosaur off the field if you're in a pinch. But also, if we've normal summoned Animadorned Archosaur, we can use Salamangreat Almirage to get him off the field as well. So the reason we need Anima is because he has to be normal summoned with Almirage, and ideally we're not normal summoning the Archosaur. We're summoning it off the effect of Miscellaneousaurus, ideally. And then we've got Secure Gardener as well. Secure Gardener is like a couple of pounds. It's not as cheap as chips, but it's fairly cheap. We got one copy of IP Masquerader. IP can be picked up so cheaply now because of its re-release in Rarity Collection 2, which is really useful for anybody wanting to run an IP. We've got one copy of the Dark Charmer Gloomy, purely so that we can use that Secret Village of the Spellcasters to be able to shut down any spells that the opponent wants to use. We got one copy of Pentastag. Pentastag be able to give us piercing to our Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which can then attack all monsters the opponent controls with piercing damage after turning them face down defense. Absolutely perfect. And then we have got one copy of Scrap Wyvern to go finish off our scrap package. We've got Scrap Wyvern here. It requires 2 monsters, including a scrap monster. You can target 1 scrap monster in your graveyard and special summon it, then destroy 1 card that you control. So it's really good to kind of summon from the graveyard a copy of the Scrap Raptor that you used to summon Scrap Wyvern, and then pop the Scrap Raptor again, getting the Scrap Raptor effect to add the Scrap Chimera to the hand. If another face-up scrap monster is destroyed by a card effect whilst you control this monster, except for during the damage step, you can target special summon 1 scrap monster from your deck and then destroy 1 card on the field. So you can use Scrap Wyvern to then summon a second Scrap Raptor to the field whilst your Scrap Chimera is bringing back the first Raptor from the graveyard. So it's absolutely brilliant for that. And then it pops a card. So if you've got a baby on the field, you can pop a card as well. And then we've got 1 copy of Appaloosa. Appaloosa, again, pretty cheap now that it is out in Rarity Collection 2. So, yeah, I think that this really works as a budget option. At the end of the combo guide, I will be putting in a combo that runs so you can see the scrap package in play. Now, it is worse than the main deck that I put out, because Scrap Wyvern and Scrap Chimera can be interrupted if you're under the effects of Miscellaneousaurus. So it isn't quite as good as running the Xeno package, but it is still really powerful what boards that you can get out of this deck. So thank you very much, everybody who has watched this video. Please do consider leaving a like down below. It'd be very much appreciated. And subscribe to the channel. We're hoping to get to 250 subscribers by the end of the year. It'd be really great if you could help us do that. So thank you very much, everybody. I will see you next time. Bye.